shipped to his brother Theo in Paris and stored in a haphazard manner, as Vincent recalled in his letters. Those material characteristics are what drew me to Wheatfield with Cypresses. After I reviewed troves of Van Gogh letters and read what the artist saw, felt, and thought 125 years ago, I was sold on turning this story into a full-length book. Ultimately, to determine whether a Van Gogh is a fake, one should first separate the paintings by time and place. Over Vincent's short 10-year career as an artist, his drawings and paintings evolved in terms of unique brushwork. He dabbled in pointillism, but his thick impasto was a signature that belonged strictly to him. When he arrived in Paris, he found his place among the Impressionist peers, from Gauguin and Monet to Pissarro and Cézanne. He was influenced not only by the rich colors and techniques of the artists, but also their drive to not replicate what was in front of them, like a photograph, but rather to draw out the natural symbolic meaning of what they saw and felt at that moment in time. It was when he went to the south of France to pursue his dream of establishing an artist colony, which never came to fruition, in Arles in 1888, and then, after a mental breakdown, checked himself into the Saint-Rémy asylum, that Van Gogh was swept away by the bright southern sunlight and colors, irises, sunflowers, and magnificent nature, wheatfields and cypresses, that spoke to him in a way that city life could not. At the St. Paul Monastery turned hospital, in his most troubled mental and emotional state, his nadir, he produced what are unequivocally his greatest artworks. During his stay at the asylum, painting was part of Vincent's therapy, and those years in Provence would become the most productive of his career. It was during this time that he went on to produce many of his masterpieces, including Starry Night, Irises, Sunflowers, and Bedroom. It was also during these years that Vincent devised a way to package his paintings to reduce shipping costs. He would stack 5 to 6 paintings on top of one another, roll them with the painted side facing outward, bind them together with a string, contributing to the disintegration of the impasto, place the rolls in wooden crates, and send the crates on the goods train from Arles to Paris in an overnight journey. One or more of Vincent's letters accompanied the rolled paintings in the trip north to his brother Theo in Paris, who stored them in his small apartment and, when there was no longer room, leased storage space from a local paint shop. A decade later, to make up for the poor storage conditions, one of the paintings, the Sunflowers, was taken to a restorer who also had a reputation as a copyist and a forger. Shortly after that, the same restorer bought 8 Van Goghs, including a Wheatfield with Cypresses, the version that is now in London's National Gallery. The story soon got more complex. As I was learning the details of Wheatfield with Cypresses, the Pollock story took a back seat to Van Gogh. I reached out to the Met to get the museum side. Could they tell me more about the painting's provenance? And spoke to one of its curators and Van Gogh experts. In my quest for answers, I emailed a dozen questions to the Met, but my request to examine the painting's condition report was denied. I would ask in different ways, including going to the museum in person, but was denied access each and every time. Even after I published, in the Huffington Post, a 2,600-word article on the subject, Hacking Van Gogh, Is the Master's Fingerprint Missing from a Met Painting? On July 10, 2013, the Met still rejected my request to make the condition report available to the public. By the end of July 2013, I reached out to my longtime editor, Stephen Gregory, the publisher of the English version of the Epoch Times. He wrote a Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA, letter to the Met requesting the condition report. Yet again, the Met summarily rejected the query on behalf of the press and general public, claiming that it was not quite a public institution, despite its 1870 charter stating the contrary. Why am I trying?